today we're going to be tying the Raw Prawn fly that you have seen in FlyLife issue number 121. So let's get into it. Okay, so I have my hook in the vise with the hook point facing down, and I need to apply a base of thread. So I'm going to start right behind the hook eye, and I'm going to advance my thread all the way down so that it finishes directly above that hook point barb right there. Okay, I'm going to bring it all the way back. So what I'm doing here is creating a nice foundation of thread so that all of the materials can attach to it throughout the process. So one there. We're going to bring the thread back around about the length of a dumbbell. So I'm going to attach that. So when I attach the dumbbells, I like to add a little bit of super glue. So I've got some Gulff Minuteman in the gel formula right here. So a nice little dollop right there. And then grab the dumbbell. I'm going to position that just like so. So a couple of loose wraps across, a couple of tighter wraps across the other way, and then I want to circulate underneath the dumbbell and above the hook shank just to lock it in. That glue really helps to lock these in place, and that's what you want when you're fishing for your flathead and your bream. You want these nice and sturdy. So before that glue goes off, just check that your dumbbells are nice and square both ways, so level and square. And I'm leaving plenty of room here so I can tie my wing in right at the very end. Okay, let's proceed. So we're going to bring the thread all the way back down to above that barb. And the next stage is I need to tie in a little bit of Steve Farrar blend in the shrimp colour. I'm just going to cut a little clump off from the packet, and I'll bring it up. Okay, so this one's a little bit long, so we're just going to manipulate some of those fibres, just like so. Drag the long ones out and reposition them. It's looking a bit better. Drag them out and reposition. Right, what I'm trying to do there is also maintain a nice little taper. So I'm going to tie that in. Tie that in like so. The thread that I'm using, as you would have seen in the notes, is a 210 denier flat wax from Danville's. I'm just going to get rid of those little loose ones. A couple little loose ones up there. Now I might just add a little bit more to the bottom of that fly. So this will be the underside of the fly, so the bottom of the head. That's the beauty about your fly tying, is that if you're not happy with it straight up, don't proceed. Just make sure you're happy with what you're doing from the get-go. So a few more fibres onto that one. There we go. That looks a little meatier, which is nice. Clip those bits off. I'm going to turn my fly over so you can see that that's starting to form the bottom of the head. I might just get rid of a couple of those ones out of the way, just like that. Okay, next step, or next stage, is to attach your easy shrimp eyes. So I give these a nice little bend out of the way, just flare them out a bit. I'm going to position those so that the junction is also directly below that hook point. Tie them in. These are so easy to use, and they've got a good name. Easy shrimp eyes. They don't get much easier than this, that's for sure. Just make sure that platform is nice and level. What I do like to do is just flare them out a little bit. And you can put a wrap around each stalk, so one there, and bring that back around, and one in behind her there, and that will just help hold them out in that position as well. So there we go. It's starting to look pretty good. Next step is we're going to put on the Krystal flash antennas. So I grabbed two pieces of Krystal flash, and I like to just wrap it around the thread like so, and slide it into position so it's top center, and bind that down. I'm going to finish at that junction point and push those out of the way so they're underneath of your vice jaws and pushing forward. Let's just have a little look there. There we go. They're out of the way. So we trim those in a little bit. So the next step that we want to do is now apply a little bit more Steve Farrar blend. This is in the shrimp color, and we need to complete the top section of the head. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the process. So we're going to get rid of the straggly fibers out of the way. There's just a little bit more in the density for the top that I use. So we're going to position it so that these tips are going to be a little bit longer than the bottom of the head. Okay, let's bind those on nice and tight. Get rid of those little butt sections out of the way. Alrighty. Now at this point I might take this out of the vise. I'm just going to move all of this type of material out of my way. So let's put that back in. There we go. Turning back around. So I'm still working with the hook point facing up. I could get rid of the antennas. So I'm just going to cut them off there. They're around about, I'm going to say around about 50 mils long at this point. And you will notice that most of my thread work is done up in this area below the head. Okay. So next part, or next step, is we want to add a little bit of dubbing right here. So I'm going to wax my thread just a little bit. I use the Loon High-Tax wax. This stuff is exceptionally good when it comes to bonding dubbing to thread. And the dubbing that I like to use for this fly these days is the EP shrimp dub. So it has a nice coarse texture about it, but has a little bit of UV blended through it already. Okay. I've got a nice noodle of dubbing there. And what I want to do is just almost make a ball of dubbing right there, right in that little area, directly below the barb. And what we're going to use this for, what we're using this for, is to flare the legs. And just tidy some of that up. You will notice that I do use a fair bit of thread, to be honest with you, in my tying. And if you take a bit of a look in this area here, I actually use the foundation of the thread to also aid in forming a nice shrimp fly body. Alright, so that's done. I'm very happy with that. The head's looking good, antennas are in place, eyes are in place. I've got my ball of dubbing. The next step is to start to put in the rubber legs. So I've got some barred legs from Wapsi. We're going to put one of these down each side. Let's just take the thread this way a little bit and fold it over again. And just on the underside of the hook shank, I like to bind bind that in like so. And another one on the other side, same process. Okay, one over the other side. A couple of wraps of thread. Give them a small little pull down just to position them in place, or have those legs so they're positioned below the hook shank. Okay. Then on this fly we actually add another set. So there's lots of leg movement that's going on in this particular pattern. These ones are the Hareline crazy legs in the gold colour. So I take both of those and put them on the underside of the hook, just like so. And all of my thread work is still just below that barb. And at this point, you could also clip your legs off to around about the same length as the antennas. Okay. A really important part for this fly is the egg sac, which is coming up. So right behind of here, right behind of your leg tine, I add a little bit more wax to my thread. And then I'm going to add some hotspot material. So this is from Hareline, this dubbing. This is the Scud dub in the shrimp Scud colour. So you can be fairly generous with this. Doesn't have to be too tightly wrapped because we're going to brush this material out. Have a generous amount there. And I'm almost going to wrap it on top of one another. Tidy him up. Just put a little bit more just on the back side. Alright, bit of dubbing. There we go. Just needs a little bit of a top. Just in that little vacancy right there. Okay. There we go. So our hotspot's in place now. Really important for your hotspot to be in that hook point vicinity. Okay, I found that to be super important on this fly. Now, you could start to just tease him out a little bit so you know what you're working with. So mainly from the sides and the underside. I like to tease some of those fibres out and push them toward the legs. Okay, a bit like so. We're starting to use the material now to give that nice translucent effect. Okay, so material off the top and take it forward. Manage it a little bit so it starts to slide forward, and then we're into the next stage of finishing off the body dubbing. Okay, a few more thread wraps there, and you can really see that I'm using the thread to enhance the taper of that fly. So we're going to proceed all the way from behind the hot spot down to the dumbbells. So a bit more wax applied to my thread. And back with the tan EP shrimp dub. We're going to apply bits of this and progress forwards. So we have a nice tapered body underneath with the assistance of some thread. And now we're going to proceed. So make that nice and full. We're going to brush that out. And then with touching wraps, we want that hook shank area all filled up with your dubbing. So you might take a couple little stages to do this. There's a little bit more going on now. It doesn't have to be too tightly applied. We're going to brush that. We're going to brush this out in just a sec. Okay. Another section, a bit more wax. A bit more dubbing. We should fill up this little vacancy right down to the dumbbell now. Alright, so there we go. In. There we go, that's nice. Maybe just a touch more. Right there. Just a little bit. Really just want to fill in that little void. Okay, at this point we need to get our thread out of the way. So we're going to advance it to in front of the dumbbell. We'll turn the fly over. And we can go to work again with the dubbing brush. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the fibers that are on top, and I'm combing them out or teasing them out and using them to maximize the translucency on the underside of the fly to represent all those little shrimp legs. Give them a little comb forward, just like so. And the other thing I'm doing is that I'm clearing out the space to maximize the hookup. So we've got a nice clean point. You can see that directly behind my fingers there, that I've got a really nice clean point to maximize our hook sets. Okay. That's looking pretty smart. Any problematic stragglers, you can just pull them straight out. I might get rid of these little ones just off the top here, just like so. They don't really want to play the game, so we'll get rid of those. And what I am left with now is to apply the wing. So if I turn the fly over, you'll notice in this area here above the dumbbell and toward the hook eye, I have left plenty of space. There's about 4 to 5 mils worth of space there, which gives me enough room to securely bond on the wing. So next material that comes in, this is another product from H2O. This is their Baitfish blend in Mullet Brown. I'm going to take a smallish type clump. The good thing about this product is that it's pre-blended, so it has like a shrimp color and a mullet brown or a brown color already pre-blended for you. So again, with your thumb and your forefinger, you can manipulate the fibers. Get rid of those problematic ones off the ends. And what I'm trying to do is achieve that nice taper without too much scissor work. So if you can prepare your materials ahead of tying them in, you'll actually end up with having to do less cutting, let's say. All right, that's looking pretty good. I might turn him over and use him that way. And I will want to align this piece so that these tips are around about the length of the top of the head that we put in earlier. All right, so we're going to bind him on. Just like so. Thumb and forefinger holds the materials in place. It's called a pinch and wrap method. If you want to look into the technicalities of fly tying, cut the butts off. And at this point, we're going to tidy up all of those by covering them up with our threads and start to form a nice little bullet head before we whip finish. Okay, it's looking pretty smart. Okay, let's grab the whip finish tool. In. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and tighten him down. I like to tighten my whip finishes off on my saltwater flies just ahead of the dumbbell. You might be able to see that that's where the thread is, just in there. So we'll clip him out. There's a little straggler, get rid of him. If you have a cautery tool, you could get rid of him as well. So same thing, we're going to take this back out of the vise, maneuver all of this material out of the way, just make sure that it's sitting nice, and get rid of anything that's a bit gawky looking. Okay, let's pop that back in, and we're at the final stage. All of the tying is done. At this point you have a really nicely shaped shrimp profile. You have your egg sac in position, or your hotspot in position. Your eyes are in position, lots of legs going on just here. And the final stage is to apply a little bit of flexible resin to your threads, and also to the material just above the dumbbell to hold it in place. So the gear that I use is from Gulff. This is the Gulff Flexman. I like the nozzle on it, just straight out of the factory. The formula's nice. I'm just going to put a little bit directly above the dumbbell, right there, and then coat the threads. Bit of the thread work that's on the underside of the dumbbells to cover those up. There we go. A little bit on that wing just to hold that in place a little bit. Then time for setting. So with my thumb and forefinger, typically just push down on the wing material before I set it, and you'll be able to see that the resin just leaches into that material. And there we go. Sets that in place. Rotate your fly around and get to all of those other resin areas. You might be able to see that hot spot lighting up under that UV torch. That's a key element, like I said, is to have that position directly below your hook point type area. And there we go. Curing is complete. And you have one completed raw prawn fly. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy your tying, and we'll see you on the next edition of FlyLife. Take care.